record.
I okay?
There you go.
Okay. So Project Open Hand, I was a volunteer. I've worked at the Charlotte Maxwell Clinic, which treats low-income women with cancer. And so I bring all of this to my doula work. I bring this gift of life, of community, of creating caring relationships, and of being this ease of being with others in whatever place they're in their body, mind, spirit, and a gratitude for life. And then I have a real curiosity about dying and about the process of dying. And that is essentially what brought me to this work. So with that, I will pass the baton to Nancy.
With pleasure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Nancy Finkel, and I am honored to be here with all of you and to be colleagues with Amanda and Alana. They are fabulous human beings, and I am an educator at heart, and I suppose by profession, having been involved in education in all kinds of different ways since I was probably, I guess, a tutor to others when I was in 7th grade. And I have a degree in international education after serving in the Peace Corps in the late 80s. And I come to this work, I think, having experienced death in my inner circle, starting at age 11, and learning that spirits would come and speak with me, that in dreams I could read with my uncle again. I live in this world as a bi female. I am married to a man who sees me and supports me for all that I am. And that has been a tremendous evolution coming from, I guess, for many of us, a lot of sort of inherited trauma. I also identify as Jewish, probably more culturally than religiously. And I love learning and growing. And I think that my background in education, particularly in some very challenging settings like juvenile court schools and at UC Berkeley, where there's a lot of stress, I learned to be able to keep the calm and bring the calm when perhaps some of my counterparts are really experiencing that stress very deeply. And also became comfortable talking about just about anything. So I wish I could say more. I hope in our conversations, we will be able to express and learn about each other, because I think it's really about connecting with people, as Alana mentioned, wherever they are, to be able to find release and ease and laughter, even in the darkest moments. So I'm really, again, very grateful to be here with you and with my colleagues. And I will pass this on to Amanda.
Hello, everyone. Like Nancy and Alana, I'm also grateful to be here today. I'm excited to see where our conversation takes us. I have a much shorter bio than these lovely ladies. I'm sitting here in awe, like, oh, wow, these are so good. I am an end-of-life doula, although I've only been practicing officially, if you will, for the last few years. I like to say that I've been on this journey all my life. I've never strayed from death. I've always been interested in it. I actually, my first experience was when I was around 6 years old with my mother's best friend who died of AIDS. And I remember that time very fondly and very vividly. And I believe that it really led me to where I am today, even though I didn't really know it. A couple other little tidbits about me. I'm also a florist. I love working with flowers, and I have often found that floristry ties into death work. I often find in my job almost every day, someone's coming in for a memorial or a funeral. And I often find that I get to talk about end of life through floristry as well. So they've tied in together. What else? I'm a lifelong Unitarian Universalist. That is something that's very special to me, important to me. a big part of where my community is in this lifetime. And then the last little thing I wanted to mention is I have over a decade's worth of experience in medical and legal cannabis. During that time professionally, I was focusing on working with people with cancer, chronic illnesses, mental, physical, otherwise. And I really spent that time focusing on ways to help them and improve their quality of life. And through that, I found that that also ties into my end of life work. And I have found that at the end of life, there can be discomforts that cannabis can help with. So those are just a few little tidbits about me. And yeah, once again, I'm happy to be here. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Nancy. Before I go into a slideshow, are there any questions that people have at this juncture?
Actually, Alana, if I
Mhm.
may, and group,
Yes.
I forgot to mention two things that are pretty important to this conversation, and that's that I'm a trained home funeral guide, and that means reclaiming a heritage that for many of us has been lost in caring for the physical bodies of our departed loved ones at home, even briefly. Further, I am also a celebrant, and I can help co-create personalized ceremonies before and after death. Forgot to mention those. Thanks.
Thanks, Nancy. Anybody else? Right, I am going to try to share my screen. I hope this works. And let's see, did I do it? Okay. Can everybody see that? Am I?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. So this is just a slide that has our logo. It's a labyrinth with a butterfly in the middle, and it is for the East Bay End of Life Doula Network. And that is how Nancy and Amanda and I are connected. We are part of a network. The network is not a business in and of itself. We all work for ourselves, but the network supports our work. So we have a website, we share an intake line, that's how Lisa found us. And we meet regularly to support each other with technical know-how, with emotional support, with ideas of how to serve the community. So, and what is an end-of-life doula? We most simply offer emotional and practical support to people who are facing the end of life. And how do we work? We work however we need to. So sometimes it's by phone or video call, and then it often involves in-home visits and discussions. And we show up fully. And to compare, the people are familiar with the term birth doula, who is a trusted person who works beside a birthing mother, advocating for her wishes whenever possible, and supporting her labor as an evolving process within her own knowing of her body as a new being emerges into the world. And death doulas function in a similar way. We help people understand what to expect. We provide information. So in the last months, weeks, days, we help people navigate the changes. And we show up with compassionate presence and experience with the many paths that a dying process can take. Our job is to open up pathways for people to express their wishes, their emotions, their fears, their gratitude, as they enter into that liminal space between life and death. And we're not medical providers, but we are familiar with the medical world. We're not the inner emotional circle of family and loved ones, but we show up with non-judgmental compassion and a basket of tools to comfort and support people. And we're great improvisers. So although death and dying requires support and capacity to respond to emerging needs. Death is not an emergency, and it can be full of unexpected moments. And it's in these unexpected moments that we often find cherished memories. And I'll just give a little example of that. In a recent family I was with, the family discovered the person who was dying wanted to listen to music. And of all the things that she selected, it was Beatles. And she lay on her bed, which was, not music I would have normally thought of for that moment in life and death. But she lay on her bed and just sang along to all of these songs. And her family never knew that she knew all these songs, that she loved all these songs. And they spent hours after she died listening to music. And it really opened up this whole passageway for connecting with her. And I know that I will never hear Blackbird again without thinking of her. Okay, so about our network. So we're a group of collaborative professionals. So this slide merely writes out what I'm saying. And there's a picture of some dandelions too. We're trained to care for those people who are facing death, and we're skilled at providing compassionate presence, and we are complementary to palliative or hospice care. So sometimes we come in before people are receiving palliative or hospice care. I have had people I've worked with who I helped them make the decision when it was time to call in hospice. And other times people bring us in after they have already started to work with hospice. And sometimes we work with people who are not working with hospice at all, although we do prefer that people are receiving hospice support and at the least good quality medical support. And we're called the East Bay End of Life Doula Network, but I just want to say that we do serve people throughout the East Bay. So the whole Bay Area, not just the East Bay if you're in California. And this is our current group of doulas. So you've met Nancy and Amanda and myself. So this slide has just the pictures of 5 doulas on it. And then the 2 doulas who are not with us today are Rita and Zoe. And I just want to say a little bit about them so you can get a sense of the different backgrounds that we all come from. Zoe works as an activities therapist. So she works with people who have memory challenges. And she also is very steeped in Jewish rituals around end of life, and works with a Chevra Kadisha, which is the ritual handling of the body after death. And she also has served some of our clients, to help with other Jewish rituals associated not just with death and dying, sometimes rituals to help in the process of letting go. And Rita comes from a business coach background and has a certificate in health advocacy. And so we all work independently, but we often collaborate in teams. So the family that I just spoke about, where the woman was listening to the Beatles, that was a family that Rita and I served together. I'm gonna just take a sip. I'm getting a dry throat. So this slide is divided into 2 sections, and it's our core offerings, or how we help. And we serve people who are dying, and we also serve their care partners. And these are the primary groups who we serve. And sometimes we serve them all at the same time, and sometimes we're serving them separately. Sometimes we're serving only one or the other. So some of our work is with the care partners and not necessarily with the dying person. Sometimes that's the call we get, is someone who is a close loved one who wants the support. So the kinds of support we give to the dying, and again, this slide just, it has a list, it's about bullet points of what I will be speaking about. So support for the dying, we do life review and legacy work. So that happens sometimes through conversation, sometimes through projects. So I have a client who I was able to work with her for 14 months. She had a 6-month prognosis when I started working with her. So I helped her get onto hospice to get the support she needed at home. And then she was a quilter. So in those 14 months, she made several quilts that were really integrating. They were very symbolic of different emotional things that she was working through at that time. She was very dedicated to her Buddhist practice. She also worked with a spiritual teacher from the San Francisco Zen Center. So in that time, she took her vows, her Buddhist vows. And then she also made some mixtapes for her daughter and her partner. So these are examples of the kind of legacy work that someone might do that can be loosely supported or very tightly supported with the doula. And we focus on intention in the final days. So these are conversations that people often want to have, but don't know how to initiate or don't know who to have them with. So the specifics, what kind of flowers do you love to have around you that give you peace? What kind of music do you love to listen to? What kind of fabrics do you love to have around you? How do you create peace and beauty around you? We also can support decision making. So sometimes people have, as a disinterested party, we can help people think through different pieces of things that are unresolved in their lives, and that may include people they haven't talked to yet, or conflicts they have not resolved, or I mean, the options are endless. And then I think most importantly, we encourage a sense of well-being because we are comfortable with all of the physical, emotional, spiritual changes that can happen. We're able to kind of surf through that with people and help people if they need something like medication, encourage them to go seek that if that is in fact true, or if they need, for pain or for sleeping or something like that, distress, anxiety. But also, there just are a lot of things that come to the surface through the dying process, and we're not afraid to talk about any of them. And then sitting vigil is something, sometimes the dying process happens quickly, sometimes it's a very long process. It takes days or weeks. And so family members want to be with their loved one, but they can't be there 24/7. They need to stop and go sleep for a night or something. And so sometimes we'll come in and help just be present with a loved one. And then a lot of these things, I'm going to flip over now to the side of support for care partners. It's not so different. It's just, again, helping to make time and space to connect. Sometimes people get very raw as they've been caregiving for a long time and they start to snap at each other. And sometimes just having another person in there to remember, help people remember how much they care, can change the tone of conversations and the things that get expressed. We provide support for self-care. We encourage people to get self-care. And then we've got a lot of experience with care of the body before, during, and after death, and with rituals, as Nancy spoke to. And then we are able to check in with loved ones. Having been someone who was with the family or the community during the time of death, that becomes a touchstone for continued processing and reprocessing of grief and other emotions. And then I'm moving on to a new slide now, and this is a slide called specialized support. So this just points out that there are special circumstances that different people have as they approach end of life. And it's not the same for everyone. So the first item here is LGBTQIA plus considerations around death and dying. And there are myriad, and they've changed with time, thankfully. Like, we're no longer in the days where loved ones are kept out of the hospital. Thank God, goddess. We care for clients with dementia. So this is especially Zoe has a lot of experience with this. We also have worked with people who have chosen the End of Life Option Act or medical aid in dying, and we have experience with that. We are part of listservs of doctors who talk about this. We're very steeped in all of the changes to this, both legally, medically. We have lots of people we can turn to for questions. We really want to support people's belief systems. We are very careful not to impose belief systems, our belief systems, on others. So we create an open, supportive space where people can explore that as they approach death. And then we can also help with living memorials, as well as memorial services. So a living, and sometimes people want to have some sort of a gathering that happens before they've died, and we can help with that as well. And then we also have a lot of experience with different body care options for the body after death. So we are now actually organizing a trip to Pacific Internment, who has a new water burial option. So people who no longer want to turn towards cremation, there are new options becoming available, as well as other green burial options. And then we have a lot of knowledge of resources for helping with grief and bereavement. Okay, phases of support. This is a slide that takes us into a timeline conception. So it's not really new information, it's just looking at it through phases. So the first section is reflection and planning. And we, in this period, and one of the questions was, when does one start to work with a doula? And the answer is, there's always a possibility that it's a good choice. It depends on what it is you are seeking. So reflection and planning could happen at any point, whether or not you have some kind of a life-threatening diagnosis. And in this phase, we look at life review and legacy work, and we look at planning, and that could be everything from documents to more personalized, what actual care looks like. And then this next slide is vigil support. So this is about the actual dying process itself, and that we show up to hold space to help keep the environment peaceful and have the kinds of aesthetics that are conducive to that for the dying person and their family and loved ones, whatever their circle of care looks like. And we can help guide that process. So instead of, it gives the people who are with their loved ones the freedom to just be there and be present, because we'll sort of take care of all that little stuff on the margins or in the center. And then this third slide is reprocessing and early grief. So the process of talking about losing a loved one is a really important time, and retelling the story and exploring grief and just having permission to do that helps sort of inoculate people from complicated grief and helps people move through. So what are the benefits of hiring an end-of-life doula or working with one? You have earlier emotional support, better attention to wishes, increased support for loved ones, a deeper engagement. So we help make space for people to really feel that they have permission to feel what they feel. A better continuity of care. Often we are able to step in and build relationships with hospice and doctors and palliative care teams and other caregivers so that needs are really attended to. And sometimes we help keep the medical team more informed. There've been a number of times when I and my colleagues have worked with people, and because we were seeing people frequently and staying in touch, we would see things before the medical team did, and be able to encourage the family, or if given permission, even contact the medical team directly.
Alana, I just wanted to do a quick time check with you. It's about 2:35.
Okay, I think we're almost at the end here.
Okay.
Yes, this is my last slide. So, common doula tools. Deep active listening, music and reading. Sometimes we bring in poetry, or we are directed towards favorite poetry or other readings. Guided visualization and meditation are tools that we are all trained in to help people find calm and focus. Comfort through physical touch. This is one that I'm particularly fond of myself as an acupuncturist, but sometimes it's, heating up lovely little heating pads and putting them on people's feet and just giving them that sense of being cared for. And spiritual connection. So with my final slide, this is our network information, and we take turns being on intake, and so we respond pretty quickly, usually within an hour or two. And so there's a phone number here and an email, and Lisa has all of this information as well, so she can be contacted for that. I hope that's okay, Lisa. I can't see you in my view right now. Oh, somebody's here. And there are lots of other doulas out there, so we're here really to give information. If we are people who you would like to contact and work with, we are happy to receive that. But what we really want is for people to get the kind of support that they need at end of life. And that's what drew all of us to this work. And with that, I will open up the floor. Do you work with mental health? I have been working with one of metal. Oh, there's a whole bunch of stuff in the chat. Water cremation, not water burial. Nancy corrected my language. Mental health.
We don't work with mental health, but I love mental health. I love BJ Miller. So I will say that. So I wish we did, but we
I have a different experience.
Oh, okay, awesome.
I have worked with mental health, and particularly a fantastic local chaplain named Chaplain Sassy. I kid you not, that is her real name. And there are also a few other consultants that I've met on the side. And we certainly, I know you have helped me, Amanda, in highlighting some of their videos and their podcasts.
Well, can you
So
say
I
what
wouldn't
they are?
say,
Can you say what they are first? Because only Karen knows what
oh, beg your pardon. Mental Health is an alliance that is now based sort of in the Bay Area, but they work nationwide. They have a lot of online tools, and they embrace facing debilitating illness, but also end of life and pet loss. They try to go comprehensive on a palliative care model. And consultations, there's like an initial consult that I think is gratis, but they do charge, and it's pretty expensive support, but so much on their website is made available for free. And they do conduct in-person conferences. They have podcasts and videos regularly, more than once a month. Did that help, Lisa?
Yes, thank you. And
Great.
Yana, do you want to make me host again?
Oh, yeah.
Back
So
to
let's see how
more, go to
if I go
more.
into more and then I,
Oh, go to participants,
okay,
and you go to Lisa, and then you go to more under Lisa, and they say rename host or
make host.
Yeah.
Yay, there you go.
Okay, great.
Yeah, thank you.
Do people have questions? If you can't put it in the chat, you can just say your question.
I mean, I did print out the list that you folks had already submitted, so we can always work from there as well.
Can you talk about costs and how that gets arranged and stuff like that?
Absolutely. So doulas in the Bay Area, and I can't speak to doulas in other areas, but doulas in the Bay Area charge at an hourly rate that's negotiated, and there's a range, and the range is usually in the $100 to $150 an hour range. Some doulas work pro bono, they're retired, they don't need income anymore, and they just want to do this. And some of us are, this is what we're doing to feed our kids. So, and then there are, so for like medical aid in dying, sometimes people decide to hire a doula to help with that. And the doula works with the medical team, the prescriber usually, and the hospice as well. But the doula will usually work in teams and charge on a job rate rather than an hourly rate. And the reason for that is that it just gets weird. People shouldn't be thinking about time when they decide to do end of life option act. And so we've calculated that doulas usually spend 10 to 12 hours for medical aid in dying case, for all of the different details that are involved with it, including a pre-visit, verifying everything is good to go, and talking with the family, and staying with the family afterwards and helping with whatever has been decided with where the body will go afterwards. And any rituals, we often help the family with rituals, and cleaning the body, that kind of thing. So there's usually a package rate, if you will, for that kind of a service.
And I'd just like to chime in that I really encourage my clients, and I think we all do when we do an intake, to bring it up if what they're hearing is just too much for them. And I've negotiated my rate to 50% of my normal rate for folks who feel that that would be more accessible for them. And I think our real hearts are in the work to show up with love. And if a person is really saying, I could only do this much, it becomes then my heart, or I might turn to a colleague to see if we can still serve that person at a preferred rate.
Mm-hmm.
This is Laura. I have a question. Is there any move toward certification and getting Medicare to acknowledge doulas and pay for?
Yeah, I love that question, Laura. We all want that. What I can tell you kind of hot off the presses is one of the Bay Area hospices just contacted us a couple of weeks ago. And they have written a proposal in collaboration with us and some other doulas to see if they could run a pilot program through hospice that would actually receive some funding through hospice. That's not the same as getting the federal Medicare to pay for it. But some hospices, nonprofit hospices, get bequests and they have independent funding. And so that is one thing that is maybe going to develop. Of course, the lawyers get involved and all of that. In terms of, and I think embedded in your question is also how do you vet a doula? Because that's one of the barriers, if you will, to funding. I mean, part of it is how hospice and palliative care are conceived of and how they are funded and how the hospice teams are designed and funded. But we are all trained. We've all gone through different training, some of us more than one training, through organizations that are very well respected. But that's not the same as a license or a certification.
Degree.
Thank you. Yeah, it's not the same. It's not right. And we like to think that part of what gives us as a group, and there are other groups like us, credentials, if you will, or credibility, accountability, is that we have created these networks and we're accountable to each other as well as to the physicians and hospices we work with. And we've been now doing this. I've been doing it since 2019. Nancy's been doing it for longer. I also have a license that I have my acupuncture license. So I have an acupuncture board. I'm regulated by the state of California. So a lot of us have some other kind of credential that gives us, but how to get that back into funding, I think that road is still, there's a lot of bricks to be laid on that road. But I'm seeing some of them go down. I mean, I'm seeing us get closer. So I think we are eventually headed in that direction. And the truth is that hospices are really, really overworked and understaffed. And that's part of why they're looking towards doulas and doula support, is that they are looking for the kind of versatile skill set that we have to fill in, so that the chaplains can do their work, the nurses can do their work, the social workers can do their work, and then there still is everything else that's left over.
I have a question. So what is covered by insurance right now? Hospice is covered for Medicare, right? But
Yeah.
I'm not quite clear how the insurance companies are delineating the lines. Like, do they cover a chaplain? They don't cover a chaplain. Like, what does?
Well, the hospice team has a chaplain on it.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then what would happen? Would you all would just be brought into the hospice that you're associated with and get and the insurance would be handled through the hospice organization?
Let me take a shot at that. I do want to offer that there are different models in different states, but we're talking mostly about California, right? We would normally be sort of working alongside a palliative care group or hospice group, but one of the things that's different about us is that we can spend more time. As Alana pointed out, the hospice groups are often overworked and can only spend something between 15 and 30 minutes in a person's home once a week or so, depending on their point in their dying process or their health. So essentially, I guess we shouldn't really try to respond for what is covered by Medicare, but I do think that if, for instance, Kaiser is a very different delivery model than because they are both your insurer and your healthcare provider. So there's really some variation out there depending on what kind of healthcare one has. And then there are also options where one could appeal for additional care, particularly in light of some disabilities. And a palliative care or social service agency could be able to inform you more on what else could be eligible under your insurance. I hope that helps a little.
Yeah, thank you, because it's good to
Sure.
know what is available through insurance and what
Mhm.
we would need to supplement right now, but also I'm just curious when you say the hospice was open, if that meant that the actual insurance companies were also open, like, do they have requirements of who they cover? Like you said, they cover a chaplain. So, you know, that anyhow, that may not be something you have an answer for. I'm just curious about that for the future.
Sure. And maybe
Yeah.
one other thing I can say that we do is sometimes we'll do research on behalf of our clients, given that very often they're tired or they're just overwhelmed. So if that's something that a client would ask for, I think we'd give that a try to help you out.
Oh, great.
Mhm.
And the other question I had was a lot of fears, I think, for people is pain. And I know Liana, or is it Liliana?
Ilana,
Alana, you,
yeah.
you do acupuncture. Do you do sometimes do you use acupuncture to help people with pain?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean that's really how I got into the end of life work. Yeah, I do. And pain is complex, you know, and pain is felt physically, but that's not always where it's coming from. But yes, I definitely use acupuncture and herbs to help people.
I mean, the good thing is because you all are not super regulated, it sounds like you have more flexibility to respond to the needs of whatever people need based on whatever skill you have. So that, in
Mhm.
some sense, is good. Like someone said, they had a work with medical marijuana,
Mhm.
and it sounds like since you're a group, you could um, actually, like, if one person couldn't do X and one person had more skill in Y, you could, like, um,
Absolutely. That's part of what we parse when we do intake is we try to assess need, and that's part of what we parse when we decide what team, how to team up, is to really meet needs based on our various skills.
Right. Or even on an ongoing basis, I often feel so blessed that I have like a brain trust that these are folks that I can turn to on speed dial. And I know we're all old enough to kind of know what I mean by speed dial, that I feel like I can turn to my doula sisters and ask for something that's pretty quick turnaround and get great expertise.
because two of the questions had to do with like what would you be willing to do, like take a drive, or what is the breadth of what people can do. But it sounds like people can ask for anything and then work with you all either individually or as a group to see what you're able to do.
Mhm.
Definitely. And quickly, speaking to pain, at end of life, that's why things like palliative care and hospice care will come into play, right? And there will be a medical team and a nurse that is checking on you, and they don't want you to be in pain, right? So there is medicine and other options that are given to you at that time.
But sometimes those opiates make you really out of it, so
Oh,
Mhm.
totally,
alternative
totally.
options can be um, helpful if you want to be
Yeah,
cognitive.
I'd
yeah. And
actually chime in that sometimes our guided visualization and
Mhm.
support for meditation, and actually I've found just being listened to can sometimes really, and change up who's coming and who's spending time, can really distract sometimes a person from pretty profound pain. It's surprising. So we do try medical and non-medical supports, and I really turn to Amanda a lot, I think, for some of the cannabis knowledge and for different modalities, whether that could be a topical or ingested.
Mhm. And that is part of also where the medical advocacy comes in, because there are options. There are always options. And if people are having a negative or unwanted reaction to pain medication, sometimes they need a little encouragement to explore what those options are.
Right.
And yeah, Yeah, and then touch, I mean, I have had incredible shifts in people's pain level just through very gentle touch, usually at the extremities, like either the hands or the feet. But yeah, and this is an interesting comparison to birth, actually. I don't know who's been here with a birthing person, but it's not that hard to ask for what you want when you're in that state. You kind of, there's a clarity that drops in and a boldness. And I experienced that with end of life as well, that people really know where they want to be held, and they just need somebody there who's able to respond.
I see that some people are dropping off, and I do just want to answer your question, Lisa, that in our network, we require that each of us carries good car insurance, that we're licensed and have clean records. We also verify that we carry liability or business insurance. I think in Alana's case, for instance, she has both malpractice and liability because she's a licensed professional. So it's part of what we've also decided as a group is to really uphold some high standards. And we are allowed to take people out if that's what they would like. And I've also had some good experiences doing my best to bring in if the person is no longer mobile or the day we planned for an outing doesn't quite pan out, to see what we can do to bring the experience home to that person. We've done a few interesting things with sort of ocean or forest type experiences. So we are definitely willing to help our clients if they can move, but if they cannot, we do our best to bring it home to them.
Nancy is very good at that. I can attest to that.
Thank you.
This is Laura again. I have a question since time is so short. If there are any questions left on the list that Lisa forwarded you three from all of us, would you be willing to respond to some of those unanswered questions and send your responses to Lisa so she can get them to us?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's a
Well,
great
I-
idea.
Yeah.
I was looking at them, Laura, and I didn't see anything. So if there's something that you,
I'm
Tina,
not remembering our.
I'll read the
Yeah.
questions, but it looks like Tina, you have a question, and then I'll read the questions.
Yeah, I had a question about how it works with family, and I don't know if that's the same as what you're thinking of as caregivers, and I guess family are often caregivers, but they might not be. So I was just wondering how that works, because it also seems like it's a very intimate relationship that you're creating with the dying person. And like, how does that sort of relate to their relationships with other people in their life, with friends and family? That's what I was wondering about.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I will give a personal example of that. I'll give an example of the woman I spent 14 months with, and I saw her weekly for acupuncture, and we also sat zazen together. That was part of what we did together, is we sat zazen and did acupuncture and talked. And because I'm an acupuncturist, I kept charts, notes, and sometimes we would talk about things that really clearly were unresolved with family members. And so I always redirected that to back into the family system to help find a way to bring that back in real time as much as I could, with permission, of course. Like we always, I mean, the goal is always for connection. It's that is the primary, in whose interest is this, right? It's for the person who's dying. And then the other thing is I was asked to actually give a eulogy at her memorial. And so I brought up a lot of this different stories that she had shared with me and shared it back with her community. And, it was a gift I really felt honored to be able to give back as people were entering into that period after she died. Does that answer your question, Tina, or does Nan? Or...
I was also wondering, and this is just from experiences in my life that in a way are somewhat unresolved, that I've often been in my family, I mean, it's mainly with that I've been in a situation where I didn't end up being one of the people there at
Mhm.
a dying vigil. And I was just wondering if there's anything that's I mean, I don't expect that to happen again, but is there anything to support family members,
Mhm.
which is not necessarily the same as caregivers?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's because I think family members would also possibly need their own support to
Mhm.
even know things like, when do you want to make sure to be there with the person,
Mhm.
and how can you confront your own fears and needs and
Mhm.
feelings and all that? That's
Mhm.
the kind of thing I was wondering.
Yeah, those are good questions.
Yeah.
Nancy or Amanda, do you want to respond to that?
Amanda, do you want to? I have some
Go,
thoughts.
yeah, go ahead, Nancy. I saw you were
Often,
ready.
I'd say early on when meeting someone, we try to gently explore for any conflicts or differences that might need a little mediation. And pretty commonly, I will invite people, hi Jan, I know you have to go, to have a family meeting. And we've got a few tools in our basket to be able to facilitate discussion. And I can remember a specific client where the concern was about family conflict, and her heart was to have doulas present to sort of diffuse that. And I would say it was challenging, but it worked quite well.
Mhm.
And I think there was at least some positive experiences that were had around bedside that helped when the estate settlement was necessary, which is not a part of what we do. But I would say that having a few positive, more recent experiences among family members made it a little bit of a possible to resolve the estate without open fighting.
Mhm.
So we're pretty frank about stuff like that without, we hope, precipitating confrontation, but
Mhm.
letting people know that laying burdens down and family conflict is often a reason for a prolonged death.
Mhm.
So we try to bring that up with kindness but candor.
Mhm. And then in the cases where it's just like about geographic relationship, somebody's in Vermont and you're in San Diego, or somebody is still in their raising kids in their working part of their life, and they just are not able to be around as much. These things are true and they happen. And we really we search to find as much connection as possible to help. And sometimes family members are a little bit scared to enter into the space. And it's none of this is conflict per se. It's just the complications of life and fear around dying. So again, we try to really understand what people's larger matrix are, and whether, and this is the gift of having more time with someone to help them start to. So this is hard to do if we come in right as somebody is within a day or two of dying.
Mhm. And they're curling inward and not making new
Mhm.
connections,
And
which is
yeah,
hard at the end.
it is hard, and it usually it can create more pain, because people are hurting from connections they wish they had made, and that happens too.
Or settled. I have
Mhm.
one question that's on the list that I know we didn't talk about, and I do want to say, I guess I can't speak for my colleagues, but one of the questions is, how available are they, and are they on call? And in my contract, I do say, once you have contracted with me, I'm on call. And that essentially I can respond within a couple of hours. And once active dying begins, which we didn't really talk about today,
Mhm.
I would be sleeping with my phone by my bed, and I would be on 24-hour call.
Mhm.
So we are rapid response, and we do stay tuned to our clients once we've signed contracts and such, but also we are monitoring how things are moving toward one's end, and will become more available, I think, rather than less toward the more intensive part of dying.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Thank you. I was just about to ask that one. And the
Mhm.
only other one was a question that was the one you touched on was, how do you know when you're dying, or what you were calling the act of
Mhm.
dying?
Mhm.
but it sounds like it's really important to have someone early on so you can establish a relationship and figure out what you want. But is there some way to know when you're dying? When you say you will be more involved when you have active dying, how will you know when that's happening?
Well, if you have hospice on board, they'll let you know. They'll let you know that things start to change. The way that your body, like whether or not you're able to eat anymore, how you're processing water. There's changes that happen to the skin. There's ability to have attention. The mind starts to change for many people. Not always. It looks different. I mean, there's a lot of different
Sleeping.
permutations.
Sleeping a lot.
Sleeping a
turning
lot.
into-
Yeah. Much less outward activity.
Pam, you had a question? Go ahead and ask it.
Oh, totally different focus, more about organization. I was curious if most of you were trained through INELDA. And I looked that up online, and really I just kind of wanted to get a sense of the what they're trying to do to add death doulas as a service that's more widely known, and hopefully eventually through Medicare, and what you're seeing as the trade-offs between being totally self-directed and being under an organization, and how you're trying to shape the organization to give you the most of what you want. That's a huge question. I know.
It's a huge question. It's a rich question.
Well, I want to give Amanda a chance to talk, because you did training with both INELDA and Going with Grace, right, Amanda?
I did. I'm really just thinking about how to answer that question, because it is a loaded question. I think INELDA is maybe the most, or one of the most widely known organizations. So I think in that way, they definitely have a leg up when it comes to talking to certain organizations, or getting the word out. I think they're trusted. I know they're very proactive in showing up at conferences and having meetings to get the word out about end of life doulas. But as far as when it comes to like making sure Medicare covers it or something one day, I'm really not sure how to answer that question, because I'm not really sure what they're doing proactively for that. Do either of you know, Nancy or Alana?
You're certainly collaborating with Compassion and Choices, and that's a little bit
that's
more
right.
around medical aid and dying. In the state of New Jersey, there is pretty significant alliance between palliative care organizations and not necessarily getting insurance to cover. But I think there's a lot of support for a referral network, so people are becoming more familiar. And that's happening here in our area a bit too. So we've been connected to the Palo Alto Medical Foundation and Sutter Palliative Care and John Muir Health Palliative Care. And they've all been interested to work with us. But more recently, it's been the first time that a hospice org has reached out with any option for their funds. And I think those are donor granted funds, right, Alana? To
That's my
cover some of
understanding.
our
Yeah,
fees.
because they're nonprofit. Yeah.
Right. So that's the first time anyone's talked about covering our fees. But I do know in the state of Texas, there are a number of doulas that are affiliated with hospice orgs. And I think there is at least a reduction in their fees through that affiliation. I don't know if it's a full coverage. And I can say one thing about maybe affiliating with Medicare or Medicaid. We've gently and quietly talked about it ourselves, that we don't want to be required to report a lot, and we feel great about the confidentiality and the intimacy that we're able to forge with our clients. And I think there's a little
not being as regulated.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it is a balance. You're right, Tamara, to bring it up and ask about it, but I don't know that we control that. We're interested to keep our independence and our neutrality. So also working for a hospice, like I would like to recommend for any client the best hospice for them.
Mhm.
not necessarily the hospice that I've worked with the most or that is paying.
Mhm.
So I think we're looking for that balance point right now as we're moving.
Mhm. Yeah.
Can I-
Well
And you
said.
reminded me, Tamara, that you spoke direct. I have not been to the Anelda website recently, and I haven't read all of their most recent newsletters. I know that they have been. I know that they've hired someone specifically within their organization to work on this, and I
Mhm.
don't know where they are with it.
Right.
So, but you're reminding me that that's an important thing to
Yeah,
stay touched
maybe.
in with. Yeah,
If we're
it
able
is.
to meet again, maybe that's something we could look into and give you a little
Um,
bit of a report back, right? Lisa's waving at us.
I know you
yeah.
have to go, so I just wanted to follow up on what Tam said. Maybe, I don't know if this was part of her question, but can you say what is unique or similar about your organization? Because some people are out of state, so
Mhm.
I didn't know about all these end of life training places like going with
Mhm.
Grace and Melt. So is everybody sort of on the same page, or do you see yourself like super unique, or what is like, how would you advise someone who's out of state, if they were looking for an end of life person, in terms of how they figure out what meets their needs? If someone's trained by going with Grace or Inelda, is that something that you guys have found helpful for yourselves?
Good question. Well, I think going with Grace and Anelda are good baseline trainings. And there are others. And there's what's the University of Vermont training that Diane Button is part of? So which is more academic, also very good, very moving, more intensive in a way than Anelda, more time spent.
And more
Um,
money
more
spent.
money. Okay. Anelda doesn't really train in body care particularly, or funeral care, for example. So if that's something you're looking for, you would want to look for someone who had trained with, say, final passages, or yeah.
Also going with
Grace,
Grace does it too.
right?
Well,
Yeah.
and I'm fond of folks being able to find someone who looks and feels like they do. So I think both Inelda and the NIDA Alliance, and that's another one. It's we can send these as links to you, Lisa, so it's easy to share throughout the membership. But when I've been working with some folks of color or mixed heritage, they want particularly to find someone who looks like them, and they can feel an immediate connection. So I've been able to highlight for them there are directories, often with a photograph. And now that is a little superficial, but there's also a bio, and that can really help people make a connection that is a little quicker or a little more meaningful for them, maybe even shop around, which I think we would encourage people to do.
Yeah, and I did that for someone. I helped someone who needed somebody in Southern California, and I went to the Anelda and NIDA directories, and I located some people, and I made phone calls, and I vetted people for her because I had already ascertained and helped her meet some of her needs, but she needed somebody on the ground.
Yeah. And going with Grace, actually, I think it's been a year now, hired someone specifically to match you with a doula. So you can write into them and say, this is what I'm looking for. This is the area I'm in. And then they will go through their directory and they'll go through their graduates and try to match you up with whatever you're looking for. Yeah. So I've also used that program.
Hi, Trina. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Great to meet you.
Since no one has come forward with a question, I'm gonna say that there is anybody have an urgent question, or something that didn't get addressed before we let everybody go, and thank everybody for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thanks for
Thank you.
inviting us.
you're welcome.
Yeah,
Great
and
to meet
was really
everyone.
helpful.
Yeah,
And
been great.
I'll share this video just with our small little group here, so it's not gonna go anywhere else.
Okay.
And I really appreciate it, and appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, Tina.
Thank you. Thanks
so
for your
much.
great questions and your
you.
attention.
What a pleasure. Take good care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, I'm gonna end the meeting for everybody, and then we'll see next week. We'll just talk about at this more and then come up with a topic for what we want to talk about. Or if somebody has a topic, they can send it in.
This was rich. This was great. Thank you, Lisa.
Oh, good. Okay. All right, good. See you in 2 weeks, everybody.
Okay.